When we talk about the history of computing, we often begin in wartime labs and government offices. We celebrate pioneers like Ada Lovelace, Grace Hopper, and Jean Bartik, brilliant women who helped write the first algorithms, program the first machines, and shape the language of code. It's a history rooted in utility, computing as science, as warfare, as business. In post-war Britain, programming was seen as a clerical job, a form of women's work, to use Hicks' words. But as the digital world gained cultural power in the 1960s and beyond, men took over. Women were gradually edged out, their work rendered invisible. Some women still made it through. Mary Coombs, the first female commercial programmer in the UK, Dina St. Johnston, who founded Britain's first software house, Stephanie Shirley, who built an entire company of women programmers, Karen Speck-Jones, a foundational voice in natural language processing. Their achievements are extraordinary, and they have rightly become part of our official digital heritage. But this film isn't about them. This is a different history, a quieter one that played out not in the defense labs or corporate boardrooms, but in bedrooms, on factory floors, in schools, living rooms, and indie studios. This is the story of the women of leisure computing. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, something revolutionary happened in the UK. Computers came home. Machines like the ZX Spectrum, BBC Micro, and Amstrad CPC became household names. You could write your own game, learn to code, or simply play. This wasn't just a technical shift, it was cultural. It gave rise to a DIY creative economy that turned Britain into a global leader in gaming. But look a little closer and you will notice something missing from the mainstream history. Where were the women? They were there. They coded, tested, designed, trained. They ran customer support and checked every pixel for bugs. But the spotlight passed them by. Even in indie development, where bedroom coders became stars, women were left out of the story. They weren't the headline makers. They were the invisible backbone. Take Anne Brown, who helped drive the success of Birmingham-based US Gold. Her work shaped a generation of games, yet she's barely mentioned in the history books. And it wasn't just software. Women were assembling hardware, writing manuals, training users, and supporting an entire generation of home computing. One such example is the Timex factory in Dundee, Scotland, where women assembled ZX Spectrum micros in the 1980s. Their labor wasn't glamorous, but it was essential. Some women, like Sophie Wilson, co-designer of the BBC Micro, did break through. Her work helped lay the foundation for over 200 million ARM chips. But her story is the exception, not the rule. As the industry grew in the 1990s, the gender divide deepened. Games were marketed to boys, workplaces grew more male, and women's early contributions faded further into the background. But they didn't vanish. By the early 2000s, women like Rhianna Pratchett, Debbie Bestwick, and Shira were reshaping the industry from within, leading studios, writing major titles. But they too are rarely connected to the lineage of women who helped build the sector decades earlier. Today, a new generation is rewriting the rules: feminist, independent, experimental. Women like Hannah Nicklin and Shelley Romanen are building inclusive, political, and emotionally resonant games. But their work often floats untethered, disconnected from the women who came before them. As of 2022, just 30% of the UK games industry workforce is female, only 3% are non-binary. We've made progress, but numbers don't tell the whole story. We must ask, who gets the lead? Who gets remembered? This is more than a story about visibility. It's about memory, about whose work we value, and how we shape the stories we tell. By recovering these histories, we don't just change the past, we change the future. We remind girls and women that they've always belonged in games. We challenge the myth of the lone male genius, and we rewrite the history of British gaming to include the hidden architects, because they were always there, behind the pixels, behind the packaging, behind the screen.